Let's start setting variables in settings.py. Let's move this thing in settings.py. Okay, so login, logout, and WebSocket URL. And likewise, let's load email and password from environment variable. We need to import os and .env libraries. And also one more thing, let's set default account. Okay, let's set this to demo by default, and if you want to set real, you can either do this real or this real, right? For tournaments, we haven't created features yet, but very soon we will have tournament switching by default as well, right? I think this all we need for settings.py at the moment. In the main function, let's copy this thing, let's copy this function. Okay, and then import request library. And now we don't need to get environment variable here because we will use it from our settings.py. Okay, and one more thing, let's add one more argument called account type and set this to none. Also we will use from environment variable and account mode, and this is going to be account type. So whenever we are initializing this class, we don't have to necessarily pass these argument because we have set all none, right? And now these all becomes keyword argument. But in case we want to pass, we want to test other trading accounts, sure, we can do. At the time of initialization we need to pass these three things, right? And whenever these things are passed on initialization, the past values will be used. And in case these values are not passed, let's use email from our environment variable. So we have email, password, and default account type, right? Now let's import this setting from version 2, right? So from version 2.settings import, we can either import one by one, or if we need to everything, we can do like this. We can type star and it will load everything from this settings.py, right? So if email is not provided, use or fallback for this environment variable. Same goes for password, and same goes for default account type. Okay, let's define one more. Okay, let's define one more attribute connected, and this is going to be a state management variable, true or false, right? All looks good. And now we can get rid of these URLs because now we have this thing placed in our settings.py. Next, let's import logging. Instead of print, we will be using logging dot label for better message formatting. And actually the benefit of using logging is that it has these things like the time message was printed, and most important, the way like that particular message is printed, especially helpful in case of debugging an error occurs. Let's say if error is coming from particular block, we can go to that block directly, instead of scrolling through and trying to find its name, right? And labels means info. If it's warning, it's warning, and error in case of uh, error, and then message, right? So these are the benefits of logging. And print, we will be using print from time to time for debugging purpose. but for logging and better message printing, we will be using the logger. Okay, all looks good. Now what is the function that we have is the function. Two functions at the top are login and logout. Okay, let's write this thing. Let's copy this function. Okay, another thing is I want to name class name differently. Instead of this, I want to name something like algo API, right? And other thing remains the same. Same thing remains for logging. And instead of defining variable and then passing that variable, what I'm going to do is I'm going to directly pass. Uh, this is what I'm going to do. Okay, this is what I'm going to do, and then let's print the response to see what response we are getting from login API, right? So far so good. Now let's write a module outside version 2 main.py, and let's import this algo API from version 2 and let's attempt to log in. Okay, we don't need to pass any argument, right? And let's attempt to log in and see what we're going to algo API dot login. And now let's run the script. We will get an error because we haven't set iqoption username and password, and we're not passing here either, right? So here you can see 401 client error unauthorized. This means we passed wrong credentials, right? We are getting this exception because we have uh, written this line raise for status, right? So how can we handle whenever we encounter or whenever it raises for issue is we can use something called try except block. So we can use try except wherever it is likely then error occurs, right? So except exception as a we are catching the exception, right? And we can simply logger dot, this is an error, so let's say logger dot error, and we can simply print the error. This time we must get better error message than this uglier message. And here you can see the time and where this message is coming from, iqoption client, right? And the message label is error, means an error has occurred, and the error says 401 client error unauthorized for version 2, right? Okay, so everything looks good. We are getting this error because we did not pass username and the password, right? So let's write one condition at the top which will say this. Okay, so what this basically does is it checks if both of these values are available or not. In order to proceed for login, we must have email and password, right? Without these we cannot get successfully logged in, and whenever we don't get logged in we cannot do any operations, right? So our bot essentially becomes useless, right? So instead of print, use logger, and this time not necessarily error but the warning, hey, you need to pass this thing, right? And system.exit actually exits the program, and it is I think better to have it here, because if email and password are not provided, this means we cannot get authenticated to iqoption, and when we don't get authenticated to iqoption there is no point moving forward, right? Let's import this sys. Okay, now let's run the script. This time we must get like email and password is required, and here you can see warning, email and password are required. Now even if we pass only, let's say we did not pass, we passed email only, but we did not pass, we're not passing the password. Even in this condition we are going to get the same error. So what this block essentially is doing is it's validating that both of these values are available, which in this case is not, password is missing. So it so this block gets triggered and we get inside this, we get message printed and we get exit, we get out of the system, right? So this is what we get. So now we are getting as expected. Okay, looks okay. Now I will set my iqoption email and password in environment variable. Now let's run the script. This time we must get success response. Okay, so it says code success, company created an SSID. So this is very important for us, right? So we need to use this thing in many places. So let's do one thing. Let's write a function which will be capable of getting session ID. And to get session ID, here in the tutorial version you can see this is how we are getting the SSID, right? So, and in the new version as well, this is how we are going to get SSID. This time it will have dedicated function to get SSID. Okay, so this way now we can get SSID. So whenever we get successfully logged in, this means like whenever we get the SSID, this means we are successfully logged in. Now instead of print, what I'm going to do is if self dot get self dot get SSID, get SSID, that means we got logged in. Now we can simply print this message, success message, right, with logger. We can print this message successfully logged in into an account and simply print SSID and return true from the function. Okay, now let's run this script. This time instead of this we must get like successfully logged into an account. Okay, and as expected we are getting successfully logged into an account and we are also getting SSID. Now what happens if we try to keep logging in? Maybe let's say what will happen if I do this? Will it keep logging in or not? Okay, so here you can say it is keep logging in. Once we are logged in, there is no point making login request again and getting authenticated, right? Like we might have to do this in case of, let's say, re-attempt to log in, but whenever we are successfully logged in, there is no point attempting doing this thing as well. Frankly speaking, it's misuse of this function, and most importantly misuse of iqoption API. Whenever we are doing automation, one of the primary concern always be making as less API call as possible. So right now our this function is vulnerable, right? We like people can misuse, user can misuse with this action, right? So now we have this state variable, right? Let's use this state variable to control this thing. So what we can do is if, okay, so let's do one thing. Whenever we get successfully logged in, now let's set this variable to true. This means we are successfully connected to iqoption, and now we can add this validation block, right, which will check for this condition, right? If we are already connected and we are trying to log in again, now what it will do is it will simply print this warning message and return or exit the function, and this block will not run. Right now let's see what we'll get. Here you can see we're calling login 3 times. and here it says already connected, already connected, already connected. This should not be. At first we must be get logged in, and then we should get this already connected, but we are getting already connected. Okay, here the problem is here. By default this needs to be false, because by default on initialization we are not connected to iqoption. We only get connected to iqoption successfully when this thing happens, right? Okay, I think this will fix the issue. Yeah, successfully logged into an account, and then we're getting warning already connected to iqoption, already connected to iqoption. Okay, I think this all we need for login, and and frankly speaking, it's much better than what we have in the tutorial version of login, right? Now let's write logout function. Okay, so in tutorial version, like whenever this logout function is called, we are making API call. But the thing is, if we are not connected to iqoption, there is no point attempting to log out, right? So let's add this validation block. If we are connected, if we are already connected to iqoption, then we can proceed for logout, right? Otherwise do nothing. Okay, and now this URL needs to be URL from settings, right? So logout URL from settings, logout URL and data. Actually we can, like, get rid of this thing. We don't need to necessarily set data equals to none, right? Because logout, all it takes is session ID from session, right? SSID from self.session. Okay, so looks great. Let's do one thing. Let's uh, store response in a res variable, and res dot we can get something called status code, and if status code is 200, right, this means, you know what, let's print this thing. Print res dot response dot text, right? Response dot text and response dot status code. Okay, and now let's attempt to log out after logging in. Okay, and then log in again. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, successfully logged in. Then we are getting this logged out data, right? Here you can see this is logout data and this is response code, and here we are getting, and after logging out we are trying to log in, but it says already connected to iqoption, and that's because when we get logged out we must set this variable called self.connected to false. We are no longer connected to iqoption, right? And okay, so all looks good, right? And then we're getting response 200. Response 200 means we successfully logged out and logged out of iqoption. Now instead, okay, let's add this block here. If self.session.post dot status code equals to 200, that means we successfully logged out. In this case, what you have to do is, what we can do is actually set this variable to false, and let's print this message and say successfully logged out of an account. Okay, let's run this script, and what we're going to see, so we have called login, logout, login, right? So here you can see successfully logged in, then logged out, and now we are getting successfully logged in. Perfect. Okay, so this is all we need for login and logout.